Support for I Am Salt Lake comes from KRCL 90.9, amplifying community voices since 1979. This listener-supported music discovery station covers everything from reggae and punk rock to local grassroots activism. Listen today at 90.9 FM or online at krcl.org.
This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by our friends at Market Source Real Estate and Libsyn. We're going to be telling you more about them later in this episode.
And I want to personally give you a big welcome to episode 413 of I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name's Chris Hollifield.
And my name's Chrissy Hollifield.
And I know that we need to talk about the elephant in the room here, Chrissy, that there wasn't an episode last week.
Indeed. Mm-hmm.
Let me talk about this a little bit here, Chrissy. So the funny thing is, I woke up that morning, Sunday morning. I usually do a little bit more of a recording for the podcast. We usually go and record this introduction and a little outro. I lost my voice.
It sounded like you were going through puberty again.
No, I couldn't even talk. And so I'm like, hey, I can't talk on the podcast. I'm not going to make sense. Listeners won't even be able to understand me. And then I figured, you know what? It's Christmas week. Mm-hmm. So let's just not do the podcast. So I'm sorry for those of you that went to, your RSS feed, your podcast players, and there wasn't a new episode out for you. Hopefully you'll find it in your heart to forgive us.
But we promise it's better this way because Chris sounds really nice right now.
Yeah, we're back and we're better than ever. This is the last episode of 2019, so this is a good one, you guys. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast and you're asking yourself, what is this podcast all about? I'm going to tell you what it's about. This podcast is all about showcasing awesome people right here in Salt Lake City. Chrissy and I, we're talking to business owners, comedians, authors, tattoo artists, restaurant owners, breweries, distilleries, food truck owners. I think you get the idea. We're talking to anyone that might have a cool story to share. Who's joining us on the podcast episode today, Chrissy?
On this episode of the podcast, we're joined by Tyler Green, one of the co-founders of Cash. Cash is a local Salt Lake City company that has developed the most amazing product for tailgating called the Basecamp system, and we'll be getting into that in this conversation. We also get to find out what inspired them to start the company, obstacles they had to overcome, and what it's like being an entrepreneur and working with family.
This is a really fun conversation. So stoked to get Tyler on the podcast, especially, like I said, this is the last episode of 2019. It's a really good one, you guys. I think you're going to like it, so let's get into it. Enjoy. If you've listened to the show, you know I like to even just start at the beginning. Like, where did you grow up? Where's home for you, man?
So I was born in a small town called Bishop, California, up in the Sierras. Most people from LA know about it because they would have to go through it on their way up to Mammoth Mountain to go skiing.
Yeah.
So I was born there, 1990, and our family at the time had a car dealership. And about 6 weeks before I was born, the car dealership burnt down.
No kidding.
So my dad, who at the time had 2 kids older than me, so my 2 older brothers, Aaron and Joey, they had me, and then I was born, and I would assume that the idea had to have been car dealership. It was his dad's, take it over, Green Motors, and then the car dealership abruptly burnt down. So I don't think that was in the plan. So then from there, we bounced around a little bit. We moved up to Spokane, Washington. My dad was in the mining industry.
Your family did?
My family did, yeah. So my parents were married at the time. So I was, I don't even know how old I was, maybe 6 months to a year. Moved up to Spokane, Washington. My dad had done a number of different things his entire life, but at that time, he was really starting to getting into mining, and so he was in the mining industry.
What was he mining?
So he wasn't doing any of the mining. He was on the sales side.
Okay.
So my dad actually passed away not too long ago, but the best thing that I think, and I would recommend this to anyone, sit down with your dad, your mom, and if you don't know the story, ask him what the story is, because I didn't know that my dad was going to pass away not long after I asked him, because you have an idea growing up of this is where I'm from and this is how it happened. But I literally, it was my wife and I vividly remember this. We're sitting in our tiny little apartment in Chicago, and I just looked at my dad and I said, I think I know the story, but tell me why we went from here, why we went there, and how we bounced around and how we ended up here. So anyway, we're in California, car dealership burns down. We moved to Spokane, Washington because my dad had been in the Air Force years prior, and he had been in civil engineering, something like that. I never really understood his position, but he knew a little bit about mining. He was a very good salesman from being in the car dealership world. So we moved up there, and so his job was to sell large equipment. He would later go on to, my understanding, sell areas of work, and so, being up in Spokane, I can't remember the name of the company, but naturally opportunities came up, and a lot of them were down in Utah. And again, I know this because I just asked him, how step by step, why did we go here? Why did we go there? And then we ended up moving to Utah. I do know this in 1992, where my dad got a job working for a company who's no longer in business, but they were based out in kind of the industrial parkway area, which is actually really cool because it's where our warehouse is for my brother and I's company Cash now. But we moved down here and yeah, so it was 1992, and my parents bought this little really cool house in Sandy, Utah, when at the time, I grew up really in Sandy, and I always like to say East Sandy, people are big on the East and the West, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing place, and at the time it was cool because, you'd go further south and 127th, 130th, there was nothing.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a time, I grew up in a time of Utah when, Suncrest wasn't a thing. South Mountain was an area that we would literally take. Some of my earliest memories were going up there with our family, and we would just, take the truck four-wheeling, and we'd shoot guns, and then you go home, and, living in a place like that was amazing because you had amazing access to Little Cottonwood, really big skier, biking, fishing. So yeah, that's
very cool.
How I grew up with
Yeah.
that.
So I want to jump right into Cash, right? Which is spelled, it's not the traditional Cash. It's C-A.
It's like Cache Valley.
Like Cache Valley. Is that kind of the name, the reason behind the name, Cache Valley?
Yeah. So that's, it's my brother and I. So my little brother, I say little brother, but
Younger brother.
He's probably taller.
Younger brother. I
feel you.
Well, I'll admit it here. He might be a little bit taller, but we are actually less than 2 years apart. I was born on March 10th. He was born on March 5th.
Wow.
So if you were to sit us down and he was sitting next to me, and we would both probably answer this differently. So when people ask me about Cash, I say, yeah, we named it Cash because honestly, I grew up skiing snowboard from, I don't even know, probably 3 years old was the first time that I skied off the top of the tram.
Wow.
And I just vividly remember there's a tram operator. His name is Duckworth. He's been there for as long as I can remember, and have you guys ever ridden the tram before?
I know. Well, I don't ski.
Okay. Well,
I also
well, you need to get together because you live in Salt Lake City.
How embarrassing is that?
It's pretty embarrassing.
That I don't ski.
We've watched people ski, so it's
that's nice.
basically the same.
Sure. Basically.
Anyway.
So as you ride the tram up, you're going up, everyone's oohing and awing, you're talking, and then as soon as you're about to get up to the peak, they hush everyone down because they have to do announcements.
Sure.
And I just remember this guy Duckworth my entire life growing up, and he would go, shh, and then it would get really quiet. And all of a sudden they would go, welcome to Snowbird, Wasatch Cache National Forest. So my entire life, I have this imprinted in my mind. So when we went to start the company, we were talking about ideas and, names of the company and things. And the first thing that always came to my mind was Wasatch Cache National Forest. And you can't name it, you just can't do that. So the name Cache came to mind. So if you were to ask me, like you're asking me, why did you name it? I always say Cache because Wasatch Cache National Forest, Cache Valley, everything that goes into Utah. My brother, younger, little, whatever you want to call him, Dylan, would answer it because he has a pretty strong interest along with me for, maybe we'll get into this, but, Native American culture. A cache is somewhere that you store something because it's a safe place. Native Americans would put items in there that they treasured, that they wanted. It's a safe storing place, which our company is built upon our invention, our patented product, the Basecamp system, which is a tailgate pad that has a locking carabiner in it. So the idea of maybe he's onto something because a cache is a safe place, and our Basecamp system patented, cachetailgate.com. You can buy it, and it does have a locking carabiner on it. So it does kind of have a two-part meaning to it, which I actually think is kind of cool, because although we are so similar, brother and I are a bit different in our foundational beliefs, but having been born and raised in Utah, that is how we developed the name. So it is a two-part answer.
I'm sure we have a lot of listeners, right? They have no idea even what cash is.
Sure.
I know this is going to be a really generic answer, but like, let's just kind of skim through the products, right?
Okay.
So you have these tailgate items, right? Like,
yes.
I mean, I guess that would go into like why you even started it. I know we kind of talked about the name, but we didn't get into like why you even started it,
How'd
right?
the idea
or
come
the
about?
idea, I guess.
You want the idea?
Well, because that probably has something to do with the products,
The
right?
concept, yeah, absolutely. So it is a really cool story. Well, I don't want to go all the way back to childhood, but we grew up in Sandy. We would ski anywhere from, 50 to 100 days a year. My dad's rule growing up, because he was in the mining industry and, he's a traveling sales guy, worked from home. He had a bit of flexibility, which was nice for us because the rule was if it snowed, maybe it was 6 inches, it was probably 12 inches. But if it snowed a lot, the rule was we're going to take you out of school and we're going to go skiing.
Heck yeah, man.
So I grew up, and it's funny because my wife is so intelligent and very, I wouldn't call her a science person, but she grew up in a family, of math, and I miss so much school that I don't think I can do fractions.
Because you were skiing.
Because I was skiing, which I don't think is maybe a bad thing. But growing up in Sandy, we skied a lot. We went backpacking a lot. We were just introduced to so many different things. I always tell people about my dad. I'm like, if you went into our garage, you could just see his personality because he was a guy that was into this and he was into that. And then my mom, who's just an unbelievable person, she would probably support all these things. But, growing up in Sandy, we just had access, so from our driveway to Snowbird Ski Resort, where we just grew up skiing our whole lives, it was, 15, 20 minutes back then.
Oh, that's nice.
Which is not even, that's, maybe now people talk about the traffic. It's really not that bad.
What is it, an hour and a half now? Because of traffic?
Maybe
5
getting down
hours.
if you don't play it right. But the question was, how did this become? Oh, so
yeah. So how did the whole idea? Like, were you and your brother and your dad sitting around?
Yeah. So the story really started. So I was, so this was 2014. Yeah,
Okay.
2014. Me and my wife flew in. We were living in Chicago at the time. I was working for Oakley. I was a field marketing rep. My brother was ending college, starting to get into the professional field, and he went up to Oregon for an interview. So my wife and I fly into Bishop, California, where we fly into LA, and then we drive up. It's my dad, my stepmom, me, my brother. He goes up to interview up in Oregon, and he interviews with Yeti, like the cooler company, and then he drives down to Bishop. And I hadn't seen my brother in probably like a year and a half. And he gets there right after this interview. We're hanging out, we're drinking beers. It's me, him, and my dad. I haven't seen him in a long time. And I'm like, hey, man, like, how did the interview go? And he tells me, like, it went really well. Maybe it's not for me. The position's okay. But we're literally sitting on the back of the truck, and he just starts telling me about the company and how they got started and how it's two brothers and, the stuff. And at the time, like, maybe they'd been in business like a little over 10 years, which is nothing in the world of product because it takes a long time to get a following. But at that time, they were already up to something like over $2 billion in sales, which is unbelievable. So my brother starts telling me this thing about these two brothers, and they started it. And I'm like, oh, like, I've kind of heard the story. But, we kind of start talking about the idea of like, well, if they could do it, then why couldn't we do it? And I'm like, I don't even know what we would do. And my brother had been working in bike shops for a long time when he was in college. And, he's much more mechanical and engineer minded than me, but he's very good at marketing and has a great design aspect. And I'd been working in the marketing and sales field for a company like Oakley, where I'm like, it was a great company to work for because like it showed me a company that had great marketing, had amazing products. So anyway, so we're sitting in the back of the tailgate, me, my brother, my dad. My brother's fresh off this thing. We're sitting there like, why the hell not us? Well, my dad at that time was a professional pilot. Up until the day he died, he was. And we're just sitting there. My dad's kind of poking and prodding at us like, hey, like, they could do it. Why couldn't you guys?
Sure.
And my brother...
He's jabbing you.
He's kind of jabbing us, but in a loving way, I would think, because, we're just sitting there and my brother starts telling me this idea about, I worked in bike shops. I worked in Bingham Cyclery, people would always come in, and basically all the pads that they were selling and really are still selling are basically the same. And probably the biggest thing is he goes, people would walk in and they would be like, hey, I have to buy another one because it just got stolen. So my brother had been telling me about, this idea that he had for a lock that would go on the back of the tailgate pad and so that people couldn't steal it. And my dad was like, well, maybe there's more to it than that. Maybe as we're literally sitting on the back of the tailgate, we're sitting there, my dad, and it'd be funny to hear my brother's version of the story, but what I recollect is my dad being like, well, why couldn't you create more on this? And he had quite a bit of experience flying as a military contract pilot, and he starts talking about molly webbing, which is really big. It's on backpacks. You see it. People are always putting hooks on it and stuff. And he goes, what if you could create an accessory platform where people could put things on it? And so we just started kicking around the idea and we're like, well, what are you doing in the back of a tailgate? And you're sitting there. And what are you typically doing? And, maybe in Utah, you're drinking Diet Coke. I don't know. Plenty of people drink beer here in Utah too. But everyone is going to be sitting on the back of the tailgate pad. Why not have a chair and a cooler on there? Mm-hmm. Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And so it really just sparked this idea of well, why not?
Has nobody created this before? No chair and cooler for the back of a truck?
Well, at the time, no. And we didn't know.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I am more marketing and sales. My brother's engineering, but I'm certainly no inventor. I don't think no one is until they at least try it. I think Dylan had a conversation with this guy and a previous guest of your guys', Jason Klug, which
yes,
he's unbelievable.
Great guy.
He is amazing.
He really is.
That's how we connected, man.
That's exactly how we
Now, how did he introduce us or did you send me a message? I can't remember. It doesn't matter, I guess.
Well, Jason sent me your podcast and I've been listening to podcasts for a long time. And I had ran across yours. Admittedly, I hadn't listened to an episode, but I drive a lot for my real job, and I'm doing air quotes right now. But I drive a lot. I'm a dental sales rep in the real world, if you would. But I had heard Jason, and he told me about this, and he told me about how he talked about our company, and I was like, well, that's awesome.
That's right. That's right.
That's exactly where we want to be. So then I shot you a message, and I was very thankful that you invited us on here.
Yeah. No, I was just curious. I forgot how.
Yeah.
I talked to so many people.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I love seeing the connections and how the people inventing things and coming together in Utah and creating this. And it's so cool that you connected with us.
So you connected with Jason. Jason reached out to you.
So Jason reached out to me. And he just said, hey, listen to this, this podcast. And so he started talking to me about it. But anyway, so Jason and I
was trying to figure out the story because you were saying your brother talked to him.
So at the time,
because did he design your products through Klugonics then?
So my dad, my brother, and I, we have this sit down, we have this brainstorm. And also my wife and my stepmom, we're sitting in the family cabin after we're sitting in the back of the tailgate pad. Long story short, we ended up basically staying up all night, having beers, having a lot of fun, brainstorming. Let's talk about a name. Let's start brainstorming all this. And I wish I could find this piece of paper because it was mainly about the name, but also about the concept. And so that we left there and I'm like, okay, now what?
Yeah. You're excited, right?
But I'm excited. Yeah. Because we're like this, I would want this. And Dylan goes, I know this guy, Jason Klug. I'd met him through, I can't even remember where, maybe working with a local brand here. And I vividly remember looking on Jason's website and his tagline is, bring me your cocktail napkin design and we will help you turn it into a real invention. And so I remember being like, wow, okay, that sounds easy because that's literally what we had. I don't even know if we'd written a design down, but we had a concept in mind. And so that's what Jason and his team does. And at the time, maybe Jason had him and himself. He's come a long way and it's been really cool to see his success. But we went to Jason, we explained what it was. And then from there, the reality set in of, okay, you can do that. This is what it's going to cost. And I don't know about you guys, but at 24 years old, newly married, I didn't have much to offer financially, and nor did my brother Dylan, but we knew that we had a good idea and we knew that we could get it going. I don't remember what the dollar amount was. I don't think it really matters, but the amount that I took out of my savings, I knew that it was
you're like, please work.
I know that I looked at my wife and thank God that she was there because she saw the excitement. She saw the thrill. She saw this developing in front of her. And of course she's like, yeah, of course, no brainer. Go for it. It was $5,000. That's what it was. And that was massive to us.
Well, it's massive to anybody. It should be.
Yeah,
it should be.
To us. Yeah.
I guess it's all relative, but I'm like, hell yeah. And so, after Dylan and I both invested ourselves, that amount of money in the design world doesn't actually go very far. And I think that Jason at the time was definitely giving us a deal, but it went as far as we possibly could. And so that was, I don't even know the date. Maybe it was May, June, we started talking with Jason. July, we get designs going. And so basically what Jason's team does is that they take your concept, they take your idea, and then they turn it into an actual, design that can be then given to a factory, because it takes a lot of time. You think it's just, do a design. People come up to me, why don't you do this? And why don't you do that? It's like, well, for anyone that's never done it, you actually don't know how difficult it is.
Did you do like multiple prototypes?
So there were multiple prototypes, there were multiple designs. And so we have all this rhythm. We're starting to get going. We're going. This is like July. We're getting into August, September. And then come along not long after that, my dad, who had really kind of been the catalyst, not financially, but I just think emotionally and like encouraging us, died in an airplane crash. And he was flying the airplane, and it was him and another guy. He was a professional pilot. And, I'm happy to share it. I can remember that day vividly because it was not long after the election.
Which election? The Trump or
the Trump? Yeah. So
okay. Sorry. You said 2014. So,
what
yeah.
Year? Yeah. So this was So maybe I'm getting my dates off here. But
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. I'm not going to hold you to it.
Yeah. So I take that back. So we started all of this in 2015.
Okay.
And then 2016 rolls along, and maybe it took a lot longer than what I thought. But the election happened. The election actually happened in January, right? Because it's 2017. Mm-hmm. And I watch enough, I'm not one of those people that's like, I don't, like, I do care. I'm into it as much as I possibly can be, but I don't watch the news on purpose because
dude, it's negative, man.
It's just so negative. But the weird thing is that day I decided to turn on the TV. So this is the series of the events of my day that my dad died, to my recollection. I wake up, I'm having a great day, I'm at work, I call my dad, hey man, what are you doing? Like, him and I talked all the time. We were really close. And he was like, hey, I'm just getting ready for this flight. I'm flying down to Mexico. Cool, right on. Awesome, cool, awesome. Yeah, I'll call you when I land. Right on, cool. Click.
Oh, wow.
Maybe 30 minutes went by, and I turn on the news just to be like, hey, I wonder what is going on in the election. It was the day that Trump is being elected, and he's talking, and they're at the crowd in Washington. And I remember watching CNN, and Wolf Blitzer is just talking. And again, I don't care. CNN, Fox, it doesn't matter. But I was watching CNN, Wolf Blitzer's talking, and all of a sudden he goes, breaking news, airplane crash, Tucson, Arizona.
Wow.
And I didn't know where my dad was, so I didn't think about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I just said, okay, well, right on with my day. And then I remember turning it off not long after that and just going on. And I was living in Chicago at the time, and I was taking golf lessons in this really super sick downtown. You can imagine January in Chicago, this indoor facility. I remember I was having this awesome game on the simulator. And then I start getting a phone call from my stepmom, and she's calling me. And I'm looking down. I'm like, what the hell? What is going on? And then she says, your dad was in an accident. And I remember I said, where was he? And she says, Tucson. And Wolf Blitzer just comes banging into my mind. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That was my dad. And I remember asking her, are you sure? And she says, yes, he was in an accident. And I said, is he okay? And to the best of my recollection, he was in an accident. And then I said, is he okay? They're not telling me he was in an accident, but I just knew.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So then, I don't know how much you guys want to hear about that.
No, man. This is, I know your dad played a big part in this whole company, man. That's why this is important to know.
Major role because, like I said, financially at the time, I remember him telling me, hey, you want to get in? We were starting to, get investors, families and friends, which we were able to raise some amazing capital. And I'm beyond thankful for the people that did. But, he was the emotional encouragement to keep going. Even though we didn't know much about developing products, he knew that we could do it. And then when that happened, as you can imagine, your life just comes screeching to a halt because I've talked to a lot of people, and it's amazing because I remember someone shared this with me the first time that I called them about, my dad's accident. And he said, this might sound weird. And he said, but think about this. said, okay. And he said, for the rest of your life, you're going to be able to help people who are in a similar situation. And it's weird enough that maybe I've met one or two other people that, their significant other, someone that they love died in an airplane crash. But I have been able to reach out to people who've been going through this. And it doesn't matter if it's, my brother, my sister, my mom, my best friend died from cancer and it was slow coming, or it was sudden. It's the worst thing to ever happen.
Yeah.
So as you can imagine, my life came to a screeching halt, and it was pretty gnarly for about 10 days. And I remember it kind of stopped when, and it's funny to even think back on, but my poor wife, she was just so supportive to the entire thing. I remember we were in Chicago. We left a bar, of course. I'm just drinking too much, and I got to jump on this log, and I'm like, I can break logs. I'm from Utah. And I go on and just about break my ankle. So after that, I'm like, all right, I need to get my life together. But it wasn't, maybe 4 to 5 months that we even talked about cash and the idea of continuing that. So that came to a screeching halt, and also reaching back out or bringing back up Jason again. Mm-hmm. I remember he reached back out and he sent an email and he said, are you guys ready to keep going? And I just remember thinking, yes, let's keep going. And it was so hard to even grasp the idea of trying to get back into it, but it was the best thing. And that's where it kind of took a different turn of let's kind of do this to honor our dad. And so that's where, we came up with the name. I remember that I came up with the name, the Jeffrey Cooler.
Yeah.
Because it is a cooler that can go everywhere and do everything, just like our dad.
All right. It's that time of the podcast where we're going to take just a couple of minutes and tell you about one of our awesome sponsors. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Market Source Real Estate. Hey, if you love the charm and you love the character of old homes, you need to contact our friends at Market Source Real Estate. They actually helped us find the home that we're recording this podcast in right now, this very home. How cool is that?
And for the past 18 years, they have been specializing in helping people buy and sell homes in Sugar House and the greater Salt Lake area.
They have a background of flipping houses, and they've owned almost 24 homes themselves, so they know all the ins and outs of older homes.
And if you're looking to sell your home, Market Source Real Estate specializes in helping sellers update or repair their homes to increase their value and help make you more money.
I know there's a lot of listeners out there that are looking to move to Salt Lake. This is where you need to write this information down. Contact Market Source Real Estate. If you're looking to buy an old home, they know what to look for in older homes so you don't end up buying a money pit, you guys. Find their info right online, really easy. Type in thinksaltlakecity.com in your web browser, or just give them a call, 801-810-6773. Go hit them up. Go talk to them. They're gonna help you out and find a really cool home for you. And many thanks to Market Source Real Estate for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. So one of my big questions that I wanted to ask you, you hear all the time, don't get into business with family. Don't start a business with family. I mean, you obviously broke the rule.
Sure.
Were you nervous? I mean, or did you never hear that piece of advice?
Oh, yeah. No, I heard it.
I'm sure you did.
No, I heard that. I heard, people... I've been thankful to know people that have businesses, whether it's attorneys that have their own businesses, watching people, start their own businesses. And that was brought up to me a lot.
Yeah.
But there's no one else that I never even thought, man, I knew what Dylan's strengths were and I knew what mine were. And it just was so natural to have someone that is genuinely, people talk about my best friend. Let me just lay it out. My wife, she's my best friend. But outside of that, it's absolutely my little brother, Dylan. We're less than 2 years apart. I did everything with him growing up. If he did this, I did that. If I did this, he did that. It was never even a discussion because it was just assumed that we were going to do it together.
And you've complementary skill sets.
So from a business standpoint, I just remember thinking, well, I don't know how to design a website. I don't know how to do e-commerce from the digital coding aspect. Is Dylan perfect at that? No.
Yeah.
But I also had the skill set of a field marketing, a presenting. A lot of my professional career, air quoting again, has been getting in front of people and describing products, describing benefits, describing all these things, and an overall sales kind of role. So I just thought, well, if you're going to start a business, then why not do it with someone that is better than you in different areas and that you have strengths to bring in? And it's been amazing because I meet people that start businesses by themselves And, you told me like you started this podcast by yourself, and I'm sure that you've been hopefully thanking God that she came along, because there's so much that goes into it.
There's a lot.
There's a lot that goes into it.
So she relieves a little bit of the pressure.
Absolutely. So when it's Dylan and him and I are absolutely 50-50. We do have some, some investment partners, but from a business standpoint, him and I are absolutely 50-50. Of course, there are things that him and I disagree on. Of course, there are funny instances where I'm like, I would have not thought about it like that. Like, why are you being such, an asshole right now? But the nice thing about being a brother, and I'm sure you'd say the exact same thing about me, is that you can just get through it so quickly.
Do you guys ever box it out, man? Like,
I think punch it out? I don't remember the last time Dylan and I got, maybe when we were like drinking a lot, maybe we got in like a funny fight. But
it seems like it's so much easier to work through it with a sibling because you've spent your whole life having issues with your sibling and resolving it and being forced to be together. Whereas if it's like a stranger or a friend you met as an adult, you'd have to like start learning how to resolve issues together.
But it goes back to what you were saying with how Chrissy joined the podcast 3 years into doing it, or whatever, something like that. Mm-hmm. I was scared to death, man, to even ask her, because I was like, this could either be the worst or it could be the best.
Sure.
And it was. But I mean, we weren't even married yet for starters. So, I mean, that's a different story. But at the same time, you don't know. I mean, you're taking a risk, I guess, either way. Whether the business is going to work, you're going to lose your money, I guess, or a brother.
Right.
I mean, you could, man. Like, when there's,
I guess.
Money,
that's
money,
true.
I don't know. Yeah. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, whatever, how much money. I mean, people get weird, man.
People get weird, yeah. I think that probably the best thing that Dylan and I have going for ourselves, besides the fact that we both have strong professional strengths in different areas.
Yeah.
And I tell people this all the time, the best thing that we have going for us is that we are brothers. So the issues that come up, we resolve them. I don't want to assume that I know what he's thinking, but I would like to assume that I know what he's thinking, because I've known him my entire life. We've been together. I respect him as a person. I try to not look at him as, I say little brother. I should just say he's my brother, but I try not to look down on him like that and give him the respect that he deserves. And I feel the same way that he does it to me. So are there things that we've battled across and ideas about what we want it to be? Absolutely. But the cool thing is that him and I can just like look at each other and be like, well, you know that my idea is better. Like we don't have to bullshit. And whether it's me or him, and just support one another as we go through that. Again, there are times that it's difficult because you're trying to respect the other person. But, if it was a friend, God, I'd never want to start a business with a friend, because there's so much that goes into it financially and everything else. But I don't think about not my money, our money, my wife and I's money that we've invested, because I'm like, absolutely, we're going to do this. Like my mindset is just so positive. So I try to keep it positive with Dylan. I try to just think, we're going to do this. It's going to be great. We're going to create something. We're going to learn. And at the same time, recognize that we don't know everything.
Yeah.
And try to reach out to people that have done this and that have success. And I am thankful for people like Jason, and the list could go on. But, I don't know anything about design and prototyping and creating a CAD or anything like that. Jason and his team do. So why not go to them? Yeah. Why not respect them? And at the same time, still keep, your business integrity, if you would, that, what you have thinking, ask questions.
Yeah.
So I love my brother. He's my best friend, outside, of course, my wife. But it's been a lot of fun. And him and I have a lot of fun together.
Are we supposed to say that our wife's our best friend?
I think that you. I think that you're absolutely
someone's in trouble.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, you kept saying, I'm like, well, is this just because he's going to listen?
He's like, hey, stop making me look bad.
But like in my mind, I'm like, no, it's just, I'm like, duh, of course she is. But I'm like,
I'm kidding. Is she involved at all? Is she supportive?
Oh my God, yeah. So so my wife is the most. I tell her all the time, I'm like, your strengths and your ability to focus. I'm like, people take drugs to focus like you do, because
good for her.
Because so her name is Carolyn. Her and I, it is a great story. We met 16 years old at a summer camp. Yada yada yada. We didn't talk for years. We reconnected. I went back to we met in North Carolina because I'd gone to high school there. I came back to Utah to start college. I went back to North Carolina. I was at a much different place. So her and I reconnected over the years. Yeah, she's absolutely supportive. She she blows my mind that like if it were me and I was watching it from the outside, I'd like want to get in and I want to get in and like be here's my 2 cents. She's always explained it to me that she goes, it's your company. Obviously I'm part of it, but it's your guys' company. So she's never, if I'm on the speakerphone with Dylan, like him and I, especially depending on what's going on. I mean, God, we're talking all the time.
Like if you're brainstorming,
we're brainstorming. She overhears me.
Yeah.
She's not going to hop in and be like, well, why don't you guys think like this? And why don't you guys think like that?
That's impressive because I totally do that to Chris. I jump
I
in.
like that though. I like to shoot, kind of banter and shoot ideas off you, and then have you come back with an idea, and then maybe we can make that one idea better.
But I definitely shove
that's
my
really
way in there a
great.
little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, that's good of you because I'm so defensive, I think, when it comes, to her. And if she were to hop in and like, it's not that I don't want to hear her ideas, but she just knows me so well that, when the conversation's over, it's more like, hey, how can I emotionally support you as you're going through this? Because the stress, as you guys can imagine, as you probably know from having your own business, is that it's ups and downs and it's ups and downs. You go through a Kickstarter, you go through trying to raise money, you go through a patent phase, you go through production, you go through all of these things. And she's just always blown my mind that she's just been there the whole time supporting me. How can I help? Hey, here are some things that I can do. Because her, she works at the University of Utah now. She's from North Carolina, and I tell her all the time, I'm like, but you're the ultimate Utah girl. You work at the U, you drive a Subaru, you got blonde hair and blue eyes. I'm like, you are Mrs. Utah.
She's typecast.
But I'm like, you are typecast. When you come here, people are going to be asking you what your last name is. This is why, blah, 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 blah. But
was her last name like Smith or something?
No, well, God, it's funny. Her maiden name was Donner, and so people assume like the Donner Party and all this stuff. But
oh wow, yeah.
But to answer your question, she's been so unbelievably supportive, and she the whole time has just told me, "You guys can do it. I know you can do it. Let me know when I can hop in." So
that makes such a big difference.
Oh my God.
I mean, I know we've mentioned it before on the podcast, but having a supportive partner who can watch you go through the ups and downs of creating something and starting a business, it's not easy.
No,
it's really not easy at all.
No, she, God, just thinking back in the Kickstarter phase. So we did
I was going to say, so you guys did a Kickstarter to raise some money.
So we did a Kickstarter, our entire idea. So kind of the phase is that we raised a little bit of money. Well, God, it's all relative, but we raised $50,000 through family and friends, and then primarily through a venture capitalist that we met and who graciously took a chance on us. We used that money our first goal with cash was we want to obviously get the design going, but then we want to get a patent ASAP. Because we knew that once we had a patent, then we had intellectual property, we actually had something. Even if we didn't even have inventory, we knew that we had that. Well, $50,000 in the scheme and the ways of producing product will not go a very long way because patents are expensive, design process is expensive, and rightfully so because it takes a lot of work to do it. So we did a Kickstarter, and we always told ourselves a Kickstarter will be the validation to go and raise more money with a venture capitalist that can give us the capital that we need to do bigger and better things. So we did a 45-day Kickstarter with a goal of $50,000, which maybe I'm off here, but I always typically see like an average first Kickstarter is maybe like $5,000 to $10,000.
Yeah.
So to do $50,000 for an unknown product, an unknown company.
You guys were virtually unknown as well. I mean, it's not like you guys had this following or were on a podcast or a TV show.
No, we didn't. No,
so exactly.
As much as I'd like to think that we know.
No, but you know what I mean? Like somebody somebody who already has, like a TV show or something.
Somebody's been on Shark Tank.
Yeah, and then they come out and try to raise money. It's like people know who they are. Nobody. Well, who's Cash? Right?
Well, it must be nice. Yeah, to have something
right?
like it must be really nice.
That would be nice.
We had our story. We had a great idea. We had a product. And at that time, we were patent pending. So that's what we had. So we went into this. And so to kind of get back to Carolyn, 45 days of just sitting there and watching this number. Because what's crazy about a Kickstarter is that, you go like this, and then it tapers off.
Oh, yeah.
It goes like this, and then it tapers off. And then the worst thing to ever happen on a Kickstarter, people can contribute money. 2 days later, it'll say so-and-so has retracted their pre-order. And so, God, you just sit there and you watch this number, you're like, we're getting there. And then the next day it's like, boom, it drops off. And you're like, what the hell just happened? So to be sitting there, and I'll admit it right here, I am extremely sensitive, and I took it so personally, and to just be sitting there, and Carolyn was just like, just stay positive, keep your mindset positive. You guys are going to do this. We had an awesome video. I don't know if you guys have watched it, our Kickstarter video, which I'd say in the whole aspect of this, if I had, advice to anyone, it's like pull every possible resource that you can in front of you. Dylan had a great network within Utah. Dylan is also a professional skier. He skis as an athlete for Ski Utah.
Oh, wow.
Sounds like I need to get him on a podcast.
Yes. Dylan will definitely be on here because he is he's a fantastic skier. Unless I was on here, I wouldn't say it to him that I'm still a better skier. But Dylan rips. He goes really big. He skis really fast. But anyway, so we had access in, this network of people that, had great cameras or things like this. And we did it all locally. And thank God that we have great and very good looking friends to create this video. So we pulled all these resources together. But to get back to your question, 45 days of just watching this number go up and down. I think that we hit our $50,000 goal on day, God, it couldn't have been 39, maybe 40.
Oh, wow.
Like really stressful.
Really stressful. And outside of that, God, like there's, life is still going on.
Were you sleeping at all? You probably weren't sleeping. You're anxious, man.
No, yeah. So I try not to even say, the A word, but yeah, there was a lot of anxiety going on.
Yeah, man.
So, but I remember the night that we hit 50,000. I can vividly remember FaceTiming with Dylan, and I'm crying, and he's crying, and my wife is crying. Because we've been doing it together. And then, of course, our financial partners that were involved with us, were very excited too. But, Carolyn kind of saw me through that entire thing. And, well, God, even today, still sees me through all this. So she's amazing. She's unbelievable.
So,
and she's a total babe.
I want to back up
She is. I've seen pictures.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to back up just a little bit, especially before we completely run out of time too, is I think I asked you what the products were, and then somehow we got sidetracked because I know we only talked about a cooler and a tailgate. I know you have about
kind of like an elevator pitch. For
you have about 6 different items, right? You have about 6 different items.
All right, I'll try to stay focused. So, Cash is our company. You can go to cashtailgate.com to see all of the products. We invented the world's first modular tailgate system. What the hell does that mean? Well, for years there have been basically bike pads that go over the back of your tailgate. And what they're used for is to protect your tailgate from basically your bike just resting on it and hitting it. And then you tie it down with Velcro or whatever they're using. Well, we wanted to design something that was going to be a lot more than that. So our patented idea, the modular tailgate system, the basis of it is the Basecamp pad. The Basecamp pad is a weatherproof tailgate pad that features a locking carabiner. So the big thing with everything else on the market right now is that you basically tie it over and then it's got straps and then you cinch it down and then that's it. You walk away, you throw your bikes over it. Well, that can just, you can go and look at our videos. We just made a pretty good video about how to cut them off and stuff like that. But we invented one and it's actually now patented, is that a strap runs through the bottom. There's 3 of them, but the one in the center has a steel wire beaded cable. So you lock that down and then there is a carabiner with a 3-digit combo. So no one can just take it off the back of your truck. So from there, another big problem is that, you go out and you buy, whether it's a $20,000 truck or a $70,000 one, is that you have a backup camera, you spend all this money on, and it just gets blocked. So we invented on the exterior where there's basically this raised up material. It's called thermoforming. It takes a long process. No one else is using it. But it basically pushes the stanchion, which is like the shocks, pushes it away from your truck and then also keeps it open so that you can still use your backup camera. As that then comes down on the inside, going back to the MOLLE webbing, you have these interchangeable accessory products. So we have the Lounger chair and the Jeffrey cooler. So if you were to order the Basecamp system, you'd get the Basecamp pad, which is the pad that goes over the back of the tailgate. And then on the inside, you would get 2 Lounger chairs and then a Jeffrey cooler. And the Lounger chair is great because for years, we've seen basically just like the stadium chair go unchanged. You go and you buy it at a big retailer, $10, $15, and it's basically just like a big cushion that you sit on. We invented one that not only locks into the back of the truck, but then you can take it off. It has a really great tote handle. The back of it, as it's folded down, has this wonderful mesh pocket with a zipper on it. The inside of it has aluminum rods, so you have great support on your back. Totally weatherproof, So right now, basically, bike pads, it's like, well, it's my bike pad, and then once bike season's over, I take it off and I throw it in the garage. Well, ours is awesome because we're not going to stop sitting on the back of our truck. We want to go skiing. I lived in North Carolina for a long time. People are going duck hunting. They're going to their kids' soccer game. You're using your truck in all these different ways, and we didn't just want to limit it just to bikes, and certainly not just to people in Utah. So you have that. You can take it inside of your college tailgate game, whatever you're doing. And then the Jeffrey cooler, again, designed and named after our dad. It's wonderful because for years we'd go to the bottom of Big Cottonwood and there's a 7-Eleven right there. We grab, beers and ice or whatever. You'd have to take your cooler out. You got to get out of the back of the truck. You got to do all this. Well, ours is awesome because not only it has a messenger strap so you can carry it, but as the tailgate is up, there's a flap that you basically just open up. You throw ice in it. You've got your beers and everything, and it just goes in there nice and easy. And bikes can still fit over it, which is fantastic. And so you have all those 3 accessories on the inside. And then the other, probably the biggest thing that's separating us from all of this is that there is what we call a utility strap. So right now, if you were to have any other brand besides ours, you throw it in, you tie down your bike with a piece of Velcro. Our utility strap enables you to put not only your bike, your ladder, your kayak, your 2x4s, whatever you need to throw over the back of your truck and then cinch down, you now can do it. So we had this idea of a bike pad that every other brand out there has. We now created a tailgate accessory. I love it when we have customers that order it. One of the most vivid customers that I remember is we had this soccer mom. I don't call her a soccer mom, whatever. She had kids that played soccer. I have this pickup and she goes, I don't even know what a bike pad is, but my kids are going to love this because then after they get done, they can jump in the back. I can put all the snacks and everything and we're just going to hang out. And I love that because we created something that's not a bike pad. It's a modular tailgate system that anyone and everyone can use.
Well, and when I saw it, I was like, this would be amazing for like drive-in movies.
Drive-in? Oh my God.
Perfect.
Dylan, what's the drive-in movie on Redwood?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just
Redwood Road Drive.
Redwood
maybe?
Road,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dylan, I wish he would have gotten stories for content, but he told me a story that him and a friend went down there and they had some drinks, and then he goes, yeah, we actually ended up passing out the back of the truck, but they were they were sitting in our product, loving it, and actually using it. So
that's cool, man.
Yeah. So you don't even have to bike to buy your product.
It is ultimately multi-purpose.
Yeah. And it was great because we got all the snow this week, and it's just another reason that, it fell on it. And, it's fully waterproof. You don't have to worry about that. It holds up amazing against the sun. If you go and look at the videos on our Instagram right now, I don't know if you saw them, but we literally poured.
Oh yeah, on your Instagram.
We poured the WD-40 on it and then lit ours on fire for 15 seconds and then blew it out and nothing happened to it. We did it to our number one competitor's pad, and let's just say it didn't work out so well. So, so it'll definitely hold up against the sun, weather, really anything that you need. Are there improvements? Absolutely, but we're really excited with our first generation product.
Can you buy any of them locally or anywhere, or is it all just online?
So no, so locally we have an awesome. We have 2 great retailers right now. We have Biker's Edge up in Kaysville, which we're really excited about. They have product, and then on the other side, down in Utah County, we have Truck Fellas, which is basically an automotive accessory company. They do lift kits and everything like that. So Biker's Edge in Kaysville. And then we have Truck Fellas down in Orem, and we're building out our local dealers, but that's what we have now. And then, yes, you can absolutely go to our website. We have free shipping within the United States. And if you're within Utah, you are going to see Dylan or I show up with the product in hand. So,
do you hand deliver sometimes? Like if people order locally?
Oh yeah, every single.
I've
one.
always thought about
every
that.
single one,
Really?
and it's so cool because
people don't expect it, right?
No, they don't expect it. And one of the coolest things is the other day, I can't remember, I was in a bike shop or something, and I'm going around myself, trying to open up dealers and stuff. But I was in there and I wasn't delivering, but I was just presenting, and this girl looks at me and she goes, "You're the guy from the Cash page." And I said, I don't care about me, but, I was like, us? And she's like, yeah, I've been following you. And it is so cool because I'm like, local, this is what we're doing. That's why we're doing this.
You're a celebrity.
That is cool.
No.
Well, you got recognized.
No. I think that my golden retriever is much more of a celebrity than I. But,
Will you sign this piece of paper?
No.
Make it out to Chris.
Yes, I would.
No. And what would you tell somebody? Right now that you've done all this, do you have like a piece of advice, 1 or 2 pieces of generic advice that you could give anybody that might be starting a business, right? Like, I'm sure there's something you've learned over the last few years.
I would say stay very positive. It doesn't mean be naive to the challenges, but say out loud what you want to do. Try to surround yourself with as much positivity. And maybe this sounds cliche, but it's real, No,
it's, yeah.
You wake up in the morning and you go, I'm going to feel like shit. I would be hard pressed to find out if you didn't have a really bad day. Because if that's the first thing out of your mouth, but if you wake up and you're like, it's going to be great, I'm going to go for it, we're going to overcome challenges, surround yourself with people that have done this as much as you possibly can, ask questions, read as many books, listen to awesome podcasts like this. And I mean that because, I learned a lot from listening to Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the guy that started Nike. Whether it's starting Nike or, working at Oakley, everyone started doing the same thing. They had an idea, unless you have a nice trust fund to land on. Most people are starting with an idea and they don't have enough capital to get it going, but you grind, you work as hard as you possibly can. And if you also have a brother that you can really trust and grind with, it makes it a lot of fun.
I could imagine.
Oh, yeah.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Libsyn. I know we have a lot of listeners listening right now, and you are thinking of starting your very own podcast. How do I know? It's because you're emailing me. You're asking, Chris, how do I start a podcast? Give me some tips. Give me some tricks. Well, if you or someone if you're in the process of starting a podcast and you are looking for truly the best podcast audio host out there, go check out Libsyn.com. We've been using Libsyn to host I Am Salt Lake podcast for over 7 years now, and I know that I truly could not be more happy with their service. They make it super easy to set up, and they make it super easy to get your podcast routed to all the podcast players out there like Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcasts. I Am Salt Lake podcast listeners, listen up. We created a promo code just for you to use, Salt Lake. If you use this promo code at checkout at Libsyn.com, you'll get the rest of this month and all of next month a free podcast audio hosting at Libsyn.com. That's spelled Libsyn, Libsyn.com. Use that promo code Salt Lake, all one word, and you'll get the rest of this month and all of next month a free podcast audio hosting. Go check it out. I think you'll like it. And you're going to send me an email and say, Chris, thanks for the tip. Thanks for the suggestion. And many thanks to Libsyn for their support of this podcast. Let's switch gears to Salt Lake City a little bit. We have some Salt Lake City questions, and I know you know these probably already if you've listened to the show. We all have family and friends, right? They visit Salt Lake, they come to town, and they're like, show me around. Where do you? I would imagine skiing if it's wintertime.
Yeah. So I real life experience. So my wife's from North Carolina. Her folks are not from Utah, which is awesome. So I've done this a number of times now, and I call it the Utah tour. So depending on what people are into, obviously, for anyone that's never been to Utah.
Let's say this time of year, because I know it depends whether it's summer or winter, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that messes up what you're going to say.
No. So, this time last year, I had a lot of family coming in town because our son was just about to be born. And my lovely wife, she was like, yeah, let's just still, she was like 2 weeks out. But if someone were to come in town, I would absolutely take them on a hike. I would take them up to Bell Canyon, just do the lower lake because it's like, a little over a mile in. It's enough for someone who's never seen Utah to be like, oh my gosh. And if you're from here, you're like, yeah, it's just Lower Bells. But to someone who's never seen that before, like I took my wife here, she's from North Carolina. The first time out here, I took her up there. She's blown away. And you don't realize how amazing it is
until you go there.
Until you go there or you've left and you come back, you're like, oh my God, like this is like in our backyard.
Yeah.
I would do Bells Canyon. If we're talking about hiking, go and do Park City, Main Street. I don't care if you're into it or not. Take them up to the Olympics, show them that. I took them last year. We went up and we watched, we did the skeleton. We were watching them do that. It's crazy. It's nuts. It's right in our backyard. It's literally right there. Food? You want to know food?
Yeah, well, yeah. Some favorite local eating spots. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm, everyone's much cooler than me if they live down in Sugar House. And I lived in Sugar House for a while. I thought it was cool, but I'm going to plug Cottonwood Heights because that's where we live and where Cash is based. Carl's Cafe.
Okay.
You know anything about it?
I don't.
Okay,
no,
good.
Tell me about it. Man.
We should try.
It sounds like a place I need to go to.
So Carl's Cafe, you will likely see Dylan and I are there for breakfast. That's kind of like our Friday early morning cash meeting spot. Cash, it's funny. So cash only, so it's good that way. But they do amazing breakfast and a unbelievable BLT. So that's just off of Fort Union and like 2300 East, Hogs Wallow. And then if you're looking, for your lady to do something fun, obviously Tuscany restaurant's always lovely as well. So
very nice.
It's very nice.
Or Frank's right there.
Save up.
Frank's, save up. And if you don't want to save up and do something great, so this is really cool. So people that, here's the ultimate. If you have someone that coming in from out of town and you don't want to spend a lot of money, but you want to blow their mind, take them to Snowbird, walk them around the tram deck, and then take them right down into the tram club. which you can get a beer and a shot for $5.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a lot of fun, because, it's something that you've never seen, and Snowbird's amazing. So
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Would you change anything about Salt Lake City if you could?
What I would change, if I could change anything, I would hope that anyone that's been here for too long, if they start complaining about it, go somewhere else and come back, because it's unbelievable. People talk about traffic, and yes, like I left here for almost 10 years, and then I came back and be like, the traffic. I'm like, I know it's not great.
Horrible.
I know
Well,
it's not that bad. I know it's not great,
bad,
but like I lived in Chicago for 2.5 years, and I'm like, this is
nothing.
This is unbelievable, and like the real estate, I know it's getting more expensive, but it's still not that bad. So if I were to change anything, carpool more up the canyons. It's the basics. But just
maybe our perspective and the fact that we should be really
we should be
grateful
very
for the things that
thankful. We
have.
should be extremely thankful.
I like that.
That's so maybe that's a cliche answer too, but that's all I got.
Where do you see Cash in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see this? Quick vision.
Or
long, I don't care.
So we've actually had inventory and been selling since about August 1st. From August 1st to, December 2nd?
Yes.
It's exploded and really started to take off. And I don't think I'll ever be overall pleased with sales, but I see us continuing to grow. I see us getting into collegiate licensing, to where you pull up into the U tailgate scene and you see the University of Utah on the back of our tailgate pads. I see just overall growth. We are developing products to extend our accessory line. I see different sizes of our tailgate pads that we can, maybe adhere to needs or wants of other people. But growth with accessories, collegiate licensing, professional sports licensing. I see us adding on more people to our team, nonprofit, to where we start to give back in different ways, which we're really, really excited to do. Yeah, just being able to give back to a Utah community with a Utah company is an unbelievable opportunity, and we're really excited about it.
Very cool. I've had a heck of a conversation with you, man.
Thank you so
I am
much.
so glad that you reached out.
Thank you.
So glad to bring you in. I know we just skimmed the surface really on everything, right?
Yeah,
Like I know we can get into depth, but and I say this, let's catch up down the road, come back on. Maybe, your brother, I'd love to talk to him about his angles of the company and skiing. I mean, you threw that out. I was like, well, we got to have a professional
Dylan
skier.
Green on, got to have him on. So.
But is there anything that you were like, I really want to talk about this, or before we completely wrap this up, I'm going to, the websites and you're on social media, but I didn't know if there was like a product or something you really wanted to make sure we talk about. Not that there should be, but maybe.
No. Can I like drop like a
shout outs? I don't know, man.
Shout outs? Can I drop a discount code? Can I say
man.
that?
No, please do, man. Let's take care of my listeners, man.
Yeah. So Utah listeners, what Dylan and I are going to offer you guys we do have some listeners out of state. Out of state. So I was just about to say in state, out of state. If you're listening to this, it means that you really like Utah. And it means that we really like you. So we're going to offer you guys 25% off.
Whoa.
I might buy one.
And free shipping. Well, you guys are, yes, we're going to take care of you guys.
Yeah.
25% off and free shipping. We're going to set up a code for you guys. The code is going to be.
I find something easy, like even SLC or a podcast.
I was going to do IMSL25.
That could work. The only problem with that is some people put spaces there.
Okay, cool.
With like IAM or IM?
IAMSL 25.
Perfect.
And I'll put that at iamsaltlake.com with this episode too. I'll put it up there so you can see the actual letters written out,
For anyone listening, IAMSL will get you 25% off and free shipping.
Okay.
And if you're in Salt Lake, don't be surprised. Very, very, Dylan and I will show up. You're going to
have a celebrity show up on your doorstep.
And when he shows up, remind him how awesome he was on the podcast, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Can I do one more?
Please, you can do 5 more if you want.
Okay, so Dylan and I are really excited to offer what no one else really within the industry does, is that we work with a local company called Offside. They do screen printing.
Yeah.
Let's just say you have a race team, you got a local shop. We're obviously looking for any and all dealers that we want to work with locally. We love working with local shops, but we can do custom print on the back of it, on the back of the tailgate pad.
Okay.
So, if you're, I don't know, South Mountain Mountain Bike Club, Federal Heights, you got a high school team, whatever it is, unless it's, collegiate, we can put your logo on the back and we offer that.
Can you put I Am Salt Lake Podcast?
You can put I Am Salt Lake
Podcast. But you can't put like logos, like NFL logos or
none of that.
Anything that's licensed.
None of that.
Yeah,
but like if you have a shop, it's your logo. You can put it on the back of it.
That is really rad.
And you're going to have it printed right here, just up in Murray, again at Offside. And we've been doing them and we continue to do them. So I love doing that because it is personal and it's your product. So we want you to like it.
And if they wanted to do that, reach out to you.
Reach out to us.
What's the website?
So the website is tailgate.com.
Awesome. And then you're on Facebook.
We're on
Instagram.
Facebook. So Instagram, it's at Cache, CACHE. On Facebook, we're going to be at Trust Cache, just trust and then CACHE, and you'll be able to find us there.
Twitter? No Twitter? Or?
No Twitter, not yet. Oh. But yeah, we just hired an intern, so maybe that'll be on the list.
Yeah.
So,
well, Twitter's an interesting breed.
Twitter is,
I mean, I think more for like geeks and computer people.
It's more like a news channel.
Yeah.
But we're geeks and we like news, so maybe we should get on there.
Chrissy has a final question that she will ask you. If there's nothing else, I'm going to let her
Indeed
have the microphone.
I always feel like it's like this ultimate moment. And then anyway.
Just the way we end the show out, really. It's nothing.
So if you could leave our listeners with one piece of life advice or a motto that you live by, what would it be?
I'm very big on positive believing and positive confession. I genuinely believe, you want to say something stupid like, I believe that I can fly, get a clue. But I mean that, you wake up in the morning, try to get your mindset as positive as you possibly can. It doesn't, positivity and all of that without action doesn't mean anything. But if you want to have success, I have seen in my own personal life and in others, you admit it, you live it, and you just walk out on it. And you also bust your ass. Very high likelihood it's going to work out.
All right. Many thanks again to Tyler Green for joining us on this episode. All of the links that we mentioned in this conversation can be found with this episode's show notes right on our website, which can be found at iamsaltlake.com/413, and that's for episode 413.
Support for I Am Salt Lake comes from KRCL 90.9, amplifying community voices since 1979. This listener-supported music discovery station covers everything from reggae and punk rock to local grassroots activism. Listen today at 90.9 FM or online at krcl.org.
Man, I love KRCL. Aren't they great?
I really do love them.
It's one of my favorite stations when I do venture over into the radio world, which is rare.
They always have something good on.
I want to do weekly recommendations, though. We haven't done it for a few weeks, and we got some good recommendations. I actually wanted to recommend this last week that we didn't have an episode, Molly and the Mineshaft. We had them back on the podcast. Gosh, you would think I would be better and I would have had
in the
episode.
200s.
Was in the 200s. I'll put the link in the show notes for this. Molly and the Mineshaft, great band. They actually played our wedding. And we got to go see a Christmas concert of theirs down in Provo, which was really awesome. But I think that might have been what caused me to lose my voice. Like there was some allergies.
There was like some allergen in the air, but it was worth it.
If you get a chance ever to see Molly and the Mineshaft live, great live band. If you get a chance, like next Christmas, if you're listening to this, to go down to Provo to check them out, it's worth it. It's
they do a free Christmas thing every year.
It's worth that drive.
It's so good
to go down to Utah County. But so Molly and the Mineshaft, what's your recommendation, Chrissy?
This week, I want to recommend volunteering at the Utah Food Bank. You can check them out at utahfoodbank.org. They have so many different volunteer opportunities. You can help deliver food. You can help, organize food. And even for little kids, you can have little kids decorate the boxes that they deliver the food in so everybody can do something.
And I get listeners all the time that are moving to Salt Lake City and they're like, hey, we just want to volunteer. So take advantage of that information with the Utah Food Bank.
And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to show your support for this podcast by supporting our show sponsors, KRCL, Market Source Real Estate, and Libsyn.
You can also easily support the podcast by sharing your favorite episodes with your family and friends right on social media. It's really easy to do. Find all your previous episodes right on our website. You can find that at iamsaltlake.com. And you can also support the podcast by becoming a Patreon supporter. Really easy to do by going to patreon.com/IamSaltLake. It's like an ongoing Kickstarter where even $1, $2 a month, it helped go a long ways with keeping this podcast going. Hey, you guys have a great week. Always remember to support local whenever possible. Have a fun and safe New Year's. Spend time with those you love this week. And we'll see you right here next week on the next episode.
and good night, Grammy.